You are listening to Middle East Monitor Conversations, bringing you lively discussions with prominent voices from the region and beyond, as we delve deeper into issues shaping the Middle East and North Africa, from politics, the culture, and the arts.
Hello, welcome to MEMO Conversations. My guest today is Noam Shuster Eliassi. Eliassi, apologies already. This is starting off great. Noam is an Israeli stand-up comedian and activist from Jerusalem who performs in Arabic, English, and Hebrew. Born of an Iranian-Jewish mother and a Romanian father whose parents survived the Holocaust, Noam was raised in Neve Shalom, Wahat As-Salam, or the Oasis of Peace, a community in Jerusalem where Jews and Arabs live together by choice. She grew up speaking Arabic and was often mistaken for a Palestinian. Noam attended the New York Film Academy to study acting, went to Brandies on a scholarship, and undertook a fellowship at Harvard School of Divinity, where she pursued religion, conflict, and peace initiatives. While in the US, she developed a one-woman comedy show where she toured nightclubs across America, because apparently you need a comedy show in order to do that. A prolific activist, Noam was the co-founder of Interpeace. Some of her comedy pieces go viral in the Arab world, including her marriage proposal on Israeli television to the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, and more recently, her satirization of the Abraham Accords and the UAE's normalization with Israel through her song Dubai, Dubai, which caused a storm. Noam was also the subject of an Al Jazeera documentary. Noam, welcome to MEMO Conversations.
Thank you for having me.
It's our great pleasure for us to have you on. I hope you don't mind me summarizing Wikipedia on you.
Yeah, it's pretty long. I'm like, did I do all of that? Oh my gosh.
So this is a summarized version of the Wikipedia entry. So I would fact check it, but I hope you're okay with it. So,
oh, that's funny. If there's a fact checker on my biography, good luck to them.
Okay, so could you perhaps tell us a little bit about, because obviously you're a comedian, you're an activist, you have multiple hats. So maybe we should break this kind of question up. What drove you to want to become an activist? We'll start with.
Wow, I think I've yet to meet an activist who can tell you exactly. I think it's something we feel from inside. It's a combination of feeling like you're a political animal and you care about your environment and you want to feel worthy and you want to change things around you. And I think with the years as we mature, also our activism matures and our activism changes, We go from like completely sacrificing our mental health and our bodies and our souls to being like, okay, now it's time for self-care. And it's like, so it evolves throughout the years. I think I was always, it's a combination of many things, but I think, a tall girl, I was always a tall girl. I was a outspoken girl. I was always dominant. I always felt like I had things to say. I always felt responsibility on my shoulders. I was put in a position where I understood from a really young age that I'm growing up differently from other Israelis outside of my community. And the fact that my best friends are Palestinians and that I'm growing up with Palestinian teachers and educators and neighbors just puts me in a different position. And I had this urge to tell the world that other things are possible. So I really felt it from the inside from a really, really young age.
Yeah, because I can imagine from what I've heard from people and, from my own encounters to be an activist in Israel that's opposed to what the Israeli state is doing to Palestinians is not an easy position to be in, especially if you're still in that society, because unless you're sort of willing to sort of moderate, in their eyes, moderate your activism, or at least, not be too vocal at certain times, you do come up against a huge wall from wider society.
I think on the surface level, it's true. It's difficult, to be critical of your own country, of your own people, and of the situation. And you get a lot of, there's a lot of backlash. And now with the new government, it's even like, it's worse. It's like real threat. It's, imagine if those people who comment on posts that like this type of rhetoric is now in government and actually holds power to do like even more horrific things than before. But when I dig deeper, like for me, I think I as the person I know myself, I think if I was silent, I would be in more suffering than not. I think it would be harder for me to not speak up and not do the things that I believe. It's not that I'm speaking up about like random day-to-day things. I'm speaking up about things that have an effect on future generations, on the people around me, on the children around me, on my friends who lack basic human rights. So it's, for me, what I'm sacrificing is nothing in compare, to what other people are going through. And so for me to join this struggle and to be vocal and to speak up, it's the least I can do. So I'm doing the least I can do. And the backlash is the backlash, and it's scary. And now I'm in denial and I'm scared. And, with the new government that is coming up in just like tomorrow, they're being sworn in. So, yeah. But I think I would be in more suffering, and it would be harder for me if I was silent.
And does that sort of feed into your comedy? I mean, is that the reason you chose comedy, or what is it? Why did you choose comedy?
So I think I think I've been a performer and a comedian since forever. Really, it was, I remember as a child also, it was me. I was that kid in family gatherings and in social gatherings that tells the stories, that tells the jokes, that is like the heart of the social gathering. And in high school I did theater. It was always my outlet, always. But I think when I went to school and I studied international relations as well as theater, I was like, wow, maybe I don't want to stand in line to auditions all my life. Maybe I want to, my childhood means something to me, and the conflict and the political situation that I live in it's part of my heart and my passion, and I want to influence my environment. And so in the beginning, I took the path of like activism, of diplomacy, of peace building, of, being like taking my political animal, passion to the next level. And my UN work was so challenging because I was, it's funny, in my comedy shows, I say that there is a fear inside of me that the things will be better and I will not have any materials for comedy. And it's true also for UN workers or NGO workers. We will all be running out of jobs if things get better. We will have the spotlight will not be on us. And so when my time in the UN came to an end, when I was fired, I think I looked around me and I think I was like, there is no way that I'm going back into another organization or another UN agency, even though I really believed in the work that I was doing, which is very, very unique for someone inside the UN to say. But what we were doing is we were working with extremists, like all the people who are now elected into government. We had a work plan to work with those people, the extremists, and to see how we're countering extremism. And the UN was like, no, this is too complicated. This is, beyond the green line. We can't work with settlers or pro-settlers. And I'm like, but that's the danger. You have to go and see what's going on because they're going to be in government. And 5 years later, here we are, and they're about to be in government. And so when that failed, I was like, I'm not doing this again. I have to choose an outlet and a way to influence where I'm not just waiting for reports or UN people or diplomats or budgets or anything. I'm not waiting around. And comedy and stand-up comedy is the most immediate tool. You grab a mic, you sign yourself up to an open mic, and you say whatever you want. So, and I was like, and I can do this in 3 languages. And as soon as my first joke went viral, and reached millions of people, and I made fun of these like fake dictators making these like fake agreements, I was like, if, the Ukrainian president is a Jewish comedian who wrote a TV show about becoming president and then became the president, maybe if I want to take my political ambitions seriously, I need to start writing jokes. So this was the path. I think it's hard to differentiate today between comedians and activists. And I'm seeing it with my fellow Iranian comedians now, who have just, Maz Jubrani, my friend, my mentor, who I've opened some of his shows in the US actually. He tells his followers now, I know you're following me because I'm a comedian, but right now I have to be the voice of these protests, of the revolution. So comedians are doing something, usually not everyone, because there is a deep, fire inside of us. We want to grab the mic. We want to say things to make people think and to make people think differently. And to me, this tool has just been a lifesaver.
I was going to say, when you were saying to the UN, we need to talk to these people, even if they're extremists, you could just say, you don't understand our part of the world. I don't, in our part of the world, you need wasta with whoever's coming in. I don't know.
Exactly.
Concept in Israel Hebrew for wasta, which is just connections in Arabic, but it means more than that. It's like my contact, you'll get things done from me. Don't know if you have a similar concept in Hebrew for that. But
oh, yeah, we call it kombina.
Kombina.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really funny, isn't it, that two cultures so far apart and yet so much alike in that sense.
Yeah.
So because you do comedy in 3 different languages, as you've just alluded to, in Hebrew, English, and Arabic, what has this sort of taught you about people's sense of humor? Is there sort of a difference in what people find funny, and are there similarities? What tickles people's funny nerve, as it were?
First of all, I think it's funny that Jews and Arabs laugh from the same format of jokes. Not always the same joke, but the same rhythm of a joke. I need to adapt my jokes for English speakers. So that's really, really funny. The humor, the rhythm, the punch, it's very much the same. I think I've gathered a big audience that really, really loves to joke about political stuff and satire, I think. And when I do stuff in Arabic, just observing from the side the process of what happens to Jews or to Arabs, so there is always already the people who understand that it's satire. If I'm using my Arabic to do something that mocks, the Arab world, doing agreements with Israel and stuff. So in the beginning, there will be like, Arabic speakers who are like, who is this? What is she saying? Oh, these Israelis, the Mossad is now teaching all these comedians, they're teaching them Arabic. Oh, they're done with undercover people. Now they're training comedians and entertainers. And then people would come in the comments and say, no, listen to her. She's mocking this type of stuff. And then in the beginning, and then some Israelis will be like, oh my God, your Arabic is so amazing. And then they'll hear what I'm actually saying. They're like, why are you using your Arabic against Israel? Why are you criticizing Israel in Arabic? How dare you? So this confusion is magic. It's amazing. It's like a treasure, right? In the UN, everything was so analytical. I had to do reports and be analytical and give people like a sense of this is my analysis. And now I'm just confusing the hell out of people. And those who understand survive with me and laugh with me.
Yeah, I can imagine, because I think also when you're thinking about doing it in the US, it's just a very different audience, right? I mean, they not only have different structured jokes, but their reference points are completely different as well.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of wondering how that adaptation works.
Every adaptation has to work in front of an audience. So it's days and hours and doing a lot of shows and testing out what works in front of this audience and what works in front of that audience. And it's so comedians who are doing in one language in front of more or less, same type of crowds, it's still a lot of work. And for me, doing it in such an navigated and fragmented political landscape, it's even worse. Like I love my job and I'm so blessed, but I'm really in for a ride. It's really, 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 really fun and complicated and sensitive and everything.
Yeah, I can sort of see that, and because I also think that because going back to the reference points, when you go to a US audience, they have probably not a very strong idea what happens inside Israel. So you can't open up with, "Oh, I can't believe Bibi did that again today." They'll be like, "Who's that?" So
yeah. I think by now, like, people who come to my shows have some kind of basic understanding of what's happening. And also, in the US, a lot of people have no idea about Israel-Palestine, but I feel like if I say Bibi or Netanyahu, and the joke is, and I give some kind of a reference in the beginning, then, a lot of people are, yeah.
Yeah, because I can also imagine, right, because you try to find references they might understand, but there's only so many times you can say, and this politician is a bit like Trump in this way, and this politician is like Trump in that way. Like, because there's a lot of Israeli politicians who, when they give speeches, they are a lot like Trump. They just, obviously, I think they're more serious than Trump ever was, but there's so many characters like that who are very Trump-like.
Yeah.
Were you surprised, for example, that your clips were going quite viral in the Arab world itself, like way outside of Palestine? So, because there were people sharing it in the Gulf, there were people everywhere.
Yeah.
That sort of took me by surprise.
Yeah, no, when you touch a very, very sensitive political topic and you have an Israeli Jew doing it in Arabic, of course, it's going to get a response. But I didn't imagine this type of wave of millions. It was whoa. And we learn something from it. You kind of, everything you try out, you learn what are the like hot topics, what are the sensitive topics, what are the things that you write, you create something, and then it just speaks to millions of people because you've hit a spot. So it was, I didn't imagine that we will reach these numbers. It's pretty amazing. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And it's also a bit sad because I wish there was more. Yeah, I wish there was more. I think if there was more, it wouldn't be that like wow and sensitive. It's like people are really afraid to speak up, and which is understandable. But I think everyone is kind of thinking how hypocrite this whole thing is, especially after what we've seen in Qatar in the World Cup. We're just like, this whole idea of this fake Abraham Accord just like exploded in our faces, and I was just like sitting there like, told you.
But is that really, because that's what was surprising me as well, that so many of the Israeli reporters were stunned by the reaction. I don't really understand how they were stunned by it, because you'd think, especially a reporter, would understand that they're probably not well liked once they get out of the bubble of Israel itself.
You'll be surprised. I don't think a lot of people in the world understand how much the status quo, we call it the status quo here. This is the normal situation. To people in the Arab world and people who are actually exposed to how not normal this situation is, they know, but we grow up in this kind of mentality where, it's a conflict and we're managing the conflict. And me personally, I'm not doing anything bad. Oh, and it's just a sport, it's a football worldwide event. So why would you bring politics into this? Please don't bring politics into this, right? And so when you're a reporter and you're excited and you're going to this place and, they gave visas to every country. So you're thinking, no, everything will be fine. It's a sports event. And then the people show up. And the people have been seeing something very, 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 very different from what these reporters have been seeing on the ground, because they live in a mentality of, we have Arab football players in Israel, and, there is politics, there is conflict, there is stuff, but the level of how this status quo that we find normal is not normalized in the rest of the world was the thing that was shocking to the reporters. And also, we are segregated from the Middle East. We're segregated from the Arab world. Most reporters, there were some reporters who are, Jews who speak Arabic, who I know them and they're great. But most reporters who were sent there don't speak a word in Arabic. And we are, it's not like we're from, like this guy said, Ecuador or Sweden. It's like we are from that area and we don't speak Arabic. So this segregation, it's a segregation of language, segregation of mentality, of understanding the landscape. Israeli reporters and journalists, most of them, not all of them, they don't even have access to understand the regional nuances even, right? And so, yeah, we have peace with Morocco. Yeah, Morocco, we love you. And then they see Palestinian flags and they're like, wait, the Morocco we just signed a peace agreement with, they're all waving Palestinian flags. Oh my God, right? And so, and the reactions on the ground were so funny. It was like, did you see this guy with a sandwich who came to the reporter and was like, fuck you, Israel? And he's just like eating a sandwich casually. And then this other guy who, this reporter came to interview him and he's like, where are you from? And he's like, Israel. He's like, whoosh. Did you see this one?
Yeah.
It's so funny, the level of disconnect, which is where comedy comes into life, right? You touch a spot and it's hilarious and it's funny because it's something that everyone knows and no one dared to talk about it. And now you have something visual to show it to you. And then that's the recipe.
But it wasn't just obviously it was predominantly people from the Arab world who were doing that, but even some from non-Arab countries were walking away when they heard there was one Japanese woman, I think, who, when she was being interviewed,
yeah,
at a cover Israeli TV, and she just walked off. So, but it also, you sit there thinking to yourself, you're like, yes, if there's one group of people who will behave, it's football fans. Like, that's the one group that if they're going to do something, it will be that group.
Yeah, no, it's yeah.
Yeah, it was an interesting thing to behold overall for that reason. But obviously coming back to politics, right? And as we've started to talk a little bit about, Bibi is back, Benjamin Netanyahu's back in power, and international press reports have dubbed this the most right-wing coalition in Israeli history. Why does this? I think the first question is, for me, is why does Benjamin Netanyahu keep coming back? In your opinion?
It's like asking your toxic ex why he keeps coming back. Because he can, because he wants to, because he knows how popular he is, because he wants to get away from trial, because he is thirsty for power, because he genuinely thinks that he's the only answer that Israel has, because he's the only person that can be in power. And to be honest, there's like the most successful satire show in Israel. It's kind of like the equivalent to Saturday Night Live in Israel, right? And so after he was reelected, after these elections, they had this very, very funny sketch where, all the people who demonstrated against Netanyahu, the kind of like left-wing, liberal, secular kind of, they're going to the bridges again with the signs like, go Bibi, go home, we don't want you again, and then we hear them talking and we're like, oh my God, this new government, no one is secular, no one looks like us, everyone is religious, everyone is fanatic, everyone is so extreme, there isn't even one person who looks like us. And then they all look at each other and they're like, oh, actually there is, it's Bibi. And then they're like, B, because at the core, right, Netanyahu is now as if he's looking to us as kind of like, he's not a religious fanatic person, he's pretty secular. He uses religion to get in touch with his like religious voters. and he's, okay, it's weird to say that he is now, to leftists who have rejected him, he now looks to them as the most pragmatic person in the government. Let that sink in, right? He is such a political, filthy genius that he structured this whole thing to make it seem as if he is now the soft, the pragmatic, the person who's going to bring everyone together, because he, you know, the people chose all these fanatics, Itamar Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, and, you know, all these fanatics. So now he's going to be the one in power. He's the grown-up adult, right? This is what he's brought us to. And this is the kind of game he plays. He's not there to lead. He has the cards in his pockets and he manages them, right? He never had a strategy. He never had a long-term future vision for Israel, nothing. He's just there to manage and control.
It'd be interesting if in the future, when they publish, you know, future editions of Machiavelli's The Prince, if they just remove the picture of Machiavelli and just have a picture of Netanyahu to see if that sells better.
Oh my gosh, it's just, yeah, it's wow. You know, I see a lot of people waking up now and speaking up, people I've never seen before. Waking up, signing petitions, being active. Maybe this will bring people to the streets, but I am very, 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 very worried for my Palestinian friends and neighbors. I'm worried for women. I'm worried for the weak and poor in society. I'm worried for my LGBTQ friends also who are under threat now. Yeah, it's you know, I've been speaking up for many, many years, and I've been active for forever. Even when things look okay, you know, I was there and I was active. So now when things are really, 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 really bad, looking really bad, I see more people coming out and talking to me and saying like, what can we do? How can we do? And it's a good, you know, it's a good thing. And then there are these people who come and tell me, no, you know, maybe it needs to be really, really bad in order for things to switch up and be good. But I don't believe it's a very responsible thing to say, because those who will be most hurt from this things getting worse, it's not us, it's people who are much weaker than us, who have the potential of losing everything. So it's really, really not responsible to say something like that, I think. And we've seen in the US, you know, people were like, oh, maybe we need to have Trump and things to get really, really bad in order for us to, you know, in order for things to shift. But it's not true. It's not true. We see that it's not true, you know. Yeah.
But I think the fact that surprises me most about Netanyahu is the fact that he's famous for never paying for anything. So, like, I remember when I read a biography on him, and then there was a time where before he was prime minister, he would go into restaurants with staffers who worked for him, and he would leave early so he wouldn't have to pay the bill. And he's notorious for never paying for things.
It's horrible. It's really, it's his, yeah. And it's, you know, it's a small example for something very, very big. His son is also like this, and you know, not to even mention his wife. He's a really horrible example for leadership. Really horrible example for leadership. He's basically ruined my generation and other, you know, and the generation, you know, I can't believe how long he's been in power throughout my life. Like, it's just, he's such a, you know, he's not a loser, he's a winner, but he's a winner in the most like loser kind of way, where how do we give power to people who are just shamelessly, like, he's shameless and he's the worst, and he's allowed those truly, truly like sick people to get so much power only so he can get away, you know, from, you know, with trial. It's kind of like Shakespeare is writing a play about Jews who get power and how they ruin it for themselves. I swear, it's like it's taken from like the Bible or Shakespeare or something, what we're doing to ourselves right now.
And my last question, which I'm going to divide into two parts, personal and political. So the political part, thinking about where we're going to be since it's 2023, new year, future coming. What do you think is going to be the future in politics in Israel-Palestine?
Oh my gosh. Oh, why do I have to answer that? I do comedy, so I don't have to answer that seriously. Look, it's right now, you know how all the options are open. Seriously, all the options are open. The scary, it's the scariest thing ever. All the options are open. Either it's, you know, May 2021 is coming back, but in a worse, like much more violent scenario. Or these freaking, you know, clowns are gonna get all this power, and then they're gonna realize that things don't, you know, it's like the story of Sharon, of Ariel Sharon, where he was like this like bloodthirsty fascist, and then he got to power and he was like, okay, things are different when you actually have power. But these people have no breaks, like they don't know when to stop, and their religious fanatic beliefs lead them into really like unimaginable hatred and just. And so all the options are open, right? And it's in our hands. I think if people take it to the streets, if people protest, if people, it depends on how much they're going to challenge us, and how much Bibi, is going to play that game of letting them be a little bit extreme, but then pulling them back. And because this is how he manages, again, the status quo. So if things get out of hand, I do believe that people will go out to the streets, but who will they go out to the streets for? Will they go out to the streets for the LGBTQ community in Tel Aviv? Will they go out to the street because they will genuinely understand that, first and foremost, the people who are going to lose everything are Palestinians? Like, there are a lot of dynamics that could happen. For me, I'm continuing what I've done my entire life. For me, nothing changes. It's the same struggle. We just have to, I just have to like put the volume up, right? For me, it's like putting the volume up and facing my deepest fears, because right now, as soon as this new government is sworn in, I'm on their list. Yesterday, a friend of ours called Israel Fry, who is an ultra-Orthodox left-wing journalist, was held in investigation and was arrested. He's already released, but he was being charged with inciting for terrorism because he has a tweet about a Palestinian who came. You know his story. Have you heard his story?
You may have to like refresh it because it's also for an audience as well.
Yeah, his name is Israel Fry. I really recommend everyone looking him up and supporting him. He's an ultra-Orthodox left-wing journalist who's been very, very, very vocal about the occupation, and he's very vocal against the occupation. And he had a tweet that Israel translated into inciting to terrorism. But what he was saying basically is that he was talking about the rights of people to resist a military occupation. So he was being charged with, being suspicious to incite for terrorism, and he was being held for investigation yesterday. So it's already starting, people like leftists or gay people are on their list in the media, whatever. And, and it's going to reach a point where nobody's going to have protection, especially Palestinians.
And the last part now, hopefully a much happier note. What have you got planned in 2023? Any new shows? Anything? What is your career going to be in 2023?
Yeah, I'm working on my one-woman show in English, and I'm hoping to tour in the US. I'm working on my artist visa and, stuff like that. It takes a lot of time. I'm also working on a few TV, it's in development. Everything is in development, but I'm working on a few TV. I'm working on a film, also a comedy film. I don't know if you've been following me, but for those of you who are listening, I was like a famous COVID in the beginning of the pandemic. I got a little bit famous for being, I had COVID in the beginning of the pandemic, and I was locked in Hotel Corona in Jerusalem for like 2 weeks. And so we're developing a really, really funny project about that story and different different ideas that are funny, and of course are in the topic of like the Middle East, Israelis, Palestinians, Jews, Arabs, Hebrew, Arabic, English, all of that together. So alhamdulillah, knock on wood, I'm working on a lot of exciting things. These things take time, but in 2023, I'm really, really hoping to tour as much as possible and meet all the amazing people who are always writing to me and, wanting to come to the shows. I've just done a really fun show in London. I'm hoping also to perform here more and in the US. And of course, continue doing my shows in Hebrew and Arabic also at home.
Noam, thank you for talking to us at MEMO Conversations. And to our audience, thank you for tuning in. Please do tune in next time for more MEMO Conversations.
Thank you.
This was Middle East Monitor Conversations, brought to you by the Middle East Monitor in London.